now. 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shift Method podcast. As always, I'm your host, Damian Michael. And I know I say we always got a special guest on the podcast, but this is a very, very special podcast because this man right here, while he won't talk about himself too much, that's my job. I'm going to be the one talking about. He's a very humble man. The Shift Method couldn't have started without the man that you're seeing right here on the opposite end of the screen. For those who are just listening via audio, we have Lucas Woody on the podcast today, everyone. Lucas, can you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick to the people?
Well, not any better than you just did right there, but I appreciate it, Damien. So Lucas Woody, founder of Human Movement in Lafayette, Indiana, along with some other businesses. And my goal is to help people find their purpose and pursue it, right? So it was pretty easy with you because you're already a driven human being. So I like to tell people I try to clear the path out a little bit so that they can walk a little easier, but you already cleared it. I just kind of had to say, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Yes. For those who don't know Lucas, we met in Indiana. I went to Purdue University for graduate school, and I had the opportunity towards the end of my program to actually do kind of an internship with Lucas to be an assistant coach. And he helped me develop not only just strategies of business, but also really working on those intangibles, right? Finding your why, getting to know your people, all these great things that we're actually going to talk about quite a bit today. And like I mentioned, the concept of the Shift Method was actually my final project that I did with Lucas, and then what ended up being my graduation project. And, the long conversations in Starbucks and all the ins and outs of why are you starting this business? What's the meaning of your business? Who are you going to serve and how are you going to do it? That's because of this man right here. So I wouldn't be where I am today without him. And you should always remember and recognize your people because they bring you to where you are today. So Lucas, really, thank you so much for being on the show. I'll make sure to talk you up. Hopefully the head doesn't get too big and explode, but I'll make sure if that does, I'll bring you back down there. So don't you worry, sir. I got you.
If my head gets bigger, I'll start to match my ears, so I'm okay.
The people who are just listening might not get it, but Lucas likes to make fun of himself every now and again.
Keeps you humble.
So Lucas, I know we're not going to talk about it too much, sir, because I know you want to get into the meat of the conversation about helping people and the why and purpose that we're going to talk about when it comes to being a facility owner, but also just working with young individuals, which you help so often. But just so that people can get a better understanding of who you are, can you kind of just give a brief summary of how you yourself got into the fitness industry?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to hear a good story, right? So, like yourself, I went to Purdue University, and I actually majored in wildlife biology. So that was my first degree. So for all of you out there who are currently undecided or in something, you're like, I don't think I'm ever going to use this for my life. Don't worry, your degree does not define you. So went there, but as I was going there, my senior year of high school, I actually, one of our chemistry teachers, surprisingly, was a young guy, just started working, and he was trying to make connections with the students, but also start a fitness routine because he had played football. And I just got done with soccer season, and we did not lift in soccer in my program. Our school had soccer for like 5 years before I came on board. So the football team, the weight room is for the football team, right? That's for the people that lift, right? And it's still, the mentality is still kind of around today. So I started lifting with him and started to realize, I kind of like this thing, right? Like this idea that the effort you put in, you get out. And that doesn't just apply in education. That applies both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So when I went to Purdue, I lived in Wiley Southwest 1, just by circumstance, which probably changed my life a little bit or put me on this path, I should say. And that is, for nobody who knows Purdue very well, that's literally the closest you can get to the co-rec. It's like a 4-minute walk. So I'd walk over there. I'd spend like 4 hours a day working in the workout room. I wouldn't actually work out for 4 hours, probably an hour, right? To let that explode settle down after I took 2 or 3 scoops more than I should have. But as I was doing that, people would, start to ask me questions, or I would communicate with people, and people would say, why are you doing it this way? Or how do I do this? And I started to recognize this excitement that I had for helping people, helping them understand, the things that they could do to better themselves. So I didn't want to change my major because my parents were paying for my college, very blessed to have a supportive structure there. And so I stuck out with it. By my last year, I took a bunch of electives in PE, physical education at Purdue. And so enjoyed those immensely and kind of dove deeper into it. And, every summer I'd go and do research projects on like timber rattlesnake research. So I'd be, hiking around, checking out rattlesnakes. But at night I would go like down in Bloomington. I went to this place called the Iron Pit Gym. If nobody's ever been, it's this old school. I hope it's still there. It's this old school, like metal plates, weights cracking on top of each other. Just huge dudes in tiny shirts, and just the epitome of like the bodybuilding style weightlifting.
Yes.
So I'd meet people there and learn more about them. I'd work out in places like people's houses that they renovated into a gym, right? Like that was the gym I worked out with when I went at home. And so just never really fully got immersed in like, this is who I am or that is who I am. I just love to dabble and figure out new ways to find methods to improve. And so when I got out of college, I decided I was going to start to look into this thing. For one, I needed a gym, right? And so I was kind of working part-time at the zoo, surprisingly, teaching people about animals, right? And got to a point where, I wanted to be able to see if this gym thing, this fitness thing was right for me. So I took a part-time job, 4:30 a.m. till 11 a.m., 2 days a week, working at a local gym, got a free membership out of it. But I also started to realize maybe this is the world I wanted to be in. So I got when the opportunity presented itself, I got a promotion to run the front desk and the childcare. Then an opportunity opened up for the director of fitness position, which is, this kind of a pivotal part in my whole career, because that would mean I'd have to start really making this serious. And so that was a job that was basically in charge of the personal training department, the sales, making sure we had the right people on board, all that stuff. But I actually took that job as the director of fitness over personal trainers who'd been doing it for years without a certification. So I was actually getting my certification at the time. So talk about underqualified. But people always are like, well, what certification should I get? What should I be doing? And you have to get a certification. You have to prove to people that you know what you're doing, right? It's important. Education, as we've talked about immensely, is important, but it's not as important as having that confidence in yourself that you can deliver. It's not letting your diploma define you, right? Mm-hmm. And so I took the job, and someday I'll have to tell you my dad's sandblasting story. It's kind of the mentality I took behind this, but maybe another podcast. But I took it knowing that I could do the job, and got it, and took the sales vastly farther than what we could have expected it to. Brought on a personal training team, started to learn leadership roles and how those work. So that's where I really truly started to become a leader. Then I got into the director of operations, which was a horrible mistake. But that's where I started to realize that this is not something that I wanted to do, was be in this commercial fitness setting. Yep. Commercial fitness is wonderful for a lot of people. It helps the masses, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't like this idea that we were going to try to trap you in a contract and hopefully you don't show up. Right? Like I benefit from you not showing up because then you're not using equipment, and then I get to keep that money. And so I just decided that I had had enough. And I remember the exact moment that it switched for me was I was director of operations. So I was trying to help sales, memberships. And so I was at the mall, and I don't know, have I told you this story?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, those guys that are at the mall, at the kiosks in the middle of the mall, and you're walking by and they have like a bottle of lotion.
Oh yeah, they're just spraying you in the face while you're walking by.
Yeah, as you're walking by, and as soon as you make eye contact, you're screwed, right?
First mistake, yep.
Yeah, so I was the guy with the lotion, right? No. Like I was this guy. It was right before New Year's Eve, right? Oh, so man. Like that December time frame, and we were there for the simple fact that we knew people were going to be emotional about getting fit, right? We knew that they were going to go through this period of time where they made bad decisions with their nutrition because they've had this entire year of stress. And now this is, we as a society have decided this is the time where we relax, we unwind. And so, and I think that's great. That's great. But as a result, we also, we kind of over exaggerate on our food choices. We start to make decisions that we maybe don't make the rest of the year. And so we we gained weight,
Yeah.
and then we had this, huge dump of guilt, and now, we're making emotional decisions in January. And so we were there to capture that, right? To be able to benefit from that. And I couldn't do that. It hurt my soul.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided I wanted to do it a different way. And so as I was working full-time there as the director of operations, I was also getting my master's online through A.T. Still University, which is the first osteopathic medicine school in the United States. So that's out in Arizona, but it was all online. So back then, online school was a little bit unique, right? Like it was a lot of, and it still is now. I'm sure a lot of people right now are suffering from this, but it's a lot of discussions. It's a lot.
Were they still had typewriters back then? Was the primary way of typing, or how'd that work?
Yes, actually, that was quill.
Pigeon to deliver your homework.
Pigeon, yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that after, Damien. Huh? So yeah, but it was such a unique experience. But it was a lot of typing. There was a lot of discussions, and school for me has never been. I've done well with school. I don't know why. There's something about the structure of school that I do well with. I do well in exams. I do well with assignments. I do well with speaking from the heart in a very short amount of time. So my wife always would get so ticked off because it'd be like, because we were in the same major, she would do all of these assignments way early and study for the exams. And like, I would write my papers literally 3 hours before they were due. And I'd get an A every time. I've had a way of thinking, right, that helps me in school. And so when I went through A.T. Still University, I didn't have any trouble. And so I decided in that moment that I was going to not only get my degree, because that was what I wanted to do, but I had a choice to make, right? So we talk a lot about responsibility. If not you, then who? I decided I was also going to help other people to benefit themselves. If I can breeze through this and have no trouble with it, then I am also going to be a shining light to set an example for others. And so I would post discussions early. I would make sure that I was getting not only the minimum, but also helping other people with their thought processes, and really took this to heart that like, I don't have to just do the bare minimum, get by and get my degree, because that's not teaching me. The degree is the minimal part of the learning experience, right? It's the qualities and the attributes and the character that you learn as a part of that degree that matters. How are you approaching that degree, like with yourself, right? Like it's not just starting the business, right? I've told you this before. Starting a business is easy. It's making a successful, sustainable business. That's the hard part. And that's the part people don't want to like. And the reason is because we look at it as I'm getting the diploma, right? Like if I get that diploma, then everything's going to be okay. No, because once you get the diploma, now you have to use that diploma. And guess what? 100,000 other people have that diploma. So what makes you different? And so it's the lessons that you've learned about bringing others along with you. Like you said, nobody gets anywhere without somebody else to help them. How do we learn those attributes? And it's getting that. And so I got my master's. Long story short, sorry.
Good.
Lesson learned's the important part, right? So I got my master's. As I was getting my master's, I had left the commercial fitness world, and I decided to do it on my own. So my master's was in kinesiology. So lo and behold, human movement. So we started human movement in 2016. And I tell everybody what do human movement, Amazon, Apple, Ford Motor Company, Harley Davidson, Maglite, all have in common. We all started in a garage. So we started the facility in my garage, and kind of the rest is history. There's more to the story, but I think hopefully I answered your question. That's kind of how we got started.
No, absolutely. And I like that you mentioned a lot of key points that really briefly I want to go over, which is the first one that you mentioned about degree choice and how maybe you started in one place and found another. That's a really awesome story, because people, look, for those who are watching, or even if you're just listening, I'll describe it for you. Lucas is in a beautiful facility right now. It's amazing. It's his, right? It's not anyone else's. Lucas was the one who designed it. He laid it out. It's beautifully themed. It's very clean and orderly. It's amazing. I love the gym. I love coming in. It's an awesome facility. But just because you don't know where you're going initially doesn't mean that you have to give up. And just because you might start in one place, that's okay if you change your mind. If you truly believe and find something along the way and you're like, I thought this was for me, but I realized it's not. It's okay. Now, the reason why Lucas was successful, in my opinion, and this is one of my values, and he's helped me quite a bit with that, is taking action, right? When Lucas figured something out, or he thought something wasn't going the way he wanted, or he found something else that he wanted to pursue, he said, okay, here's where I am. I'd like to be somewhere else. Now I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get there, right? He didn't just sit. He didn't just sulk. He actually took action and got going. And now look where he is. So if you are struggling, or especially for my freshmen, if you're like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, one, that's normal. Okay. Don't feel like you have to, know exactly what you want to do. You're 18 years old. I didn't know what the hell I was doing when I was 18. I was just fortunate that I picked the right major. Okay. Up until my last year of school, I was planning on going to the military, and life had other plans for me. And then I ended up being in the degree I want. So if you don't know where you are right now, that's okay. Just keep trying, keep taking action. The other thing is about a certificate, right? I talked about this in my very first podcast with Elias, right? Yes, the certificate does have merit and value because it shows that you can sit down, study, take a test, and have a base level of knowledge, right?
Absolutely.
But especially for personal training, anyone can get a cert. As long as you have a high school diploma, you can sit and take a cert exam. You can get certified right now.
Yeah, I have keep that thought process.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
If I can share one thing, I
Yes,
had an
sir.
interview once. I've interviewed hundreds of people for personal training, and I hadn't heard of her cert before. So I looked it up online, and literally the banner at the top said, "Get your cert before you pay." And so the test was online. So having never heard of this certification before, I took it and I passed. And then it said, "Give us $300 and you're certified."
Wow.
Right? That's how easy it is to become certified. So certification is important. It's a step in the right direction. It shows people that you're willing to put forth the effort, but so does a degree, right? And very rarely these days do I have people asking me, what's my credentials? Well, how am I certified? Because the true way that you get people to follow you is that other people that they trust and believe in follow you, and so they will too. So yeah, just a story to kind of prove your point there.
No, absolutely. And there's there's a hierarchy, right? If someone has a CSCS, we know, oh, that took a degree, or if they have an ACSM, they know that might be higher than some other, pay after cert, right? So there is some merit to it. But what I've come to find out is, because I've hired personal trainers as well as Purdue Rec Well, and have trained aspiring trainers, is that just because you have a cert doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to work with people, right? You know how to read a book, you know how to take a test, but when I put a human being in front of you, which is very complicated, right? It's not a textbook. Oh, shit hits the fan real quick. So yes, cert's important, but you also have to be able to put that into action. And the last thing I'm going to mention is, I think is why Lucas and I got along real well, because, and I'm not going to mention any names of facilities, but I have a plethora of stories of clients, friends, family members just have horrible experiences at commercial gyms. And Lucas is right. For the average person, they're good. They let you go. More or less, they leave you alone. You just go about your business. You do your exercise and you go about your way, right? It's a transaction. It's a understood relationship. But the stories I hear of people sometimes where coaches, I'll give a quick example. This was one of my clients the other day. I won't mention the gym. Online client I have. I'm training her. She does her workouts at home, but she's like, I want to start going back to a gym now so I can use more equipment.
Sure.
Goes to this gym. They get like the complimentary fitness assessment. She's like, I'll just do it for, shits and giggles, whatever. I'll go do it. Guy's a little pushy, but, typical salesman. They're going back and forth. She's with her boyfriend. She leaves to go talk to one other manager just about something else. And she overhears the conversation of her boyfriend and the guy trying to sell him. And he says something to the effect of, well, yeah, she says she's interested, but like, how do you know she's actually going to the gym? Like, it doesn't seem like she's going right now. She says she is, but I don't know. So it's just like, and I, like I said, I have a plethora of stories like that, to where the person is going to try and use guilt and manipulation and New Year's Eve feelings, right? To try and get you to buy a membership that you hopefully don't use.
Sure.
And Lucas and I hated that model, which is why I think we got along so well and why we could talk about stuff. And now look where he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Damien, it's an unfortunate circumstance of basically a culture and a structure that has been built around these short-term gains, right?
Yes.
And that goes all the way from the way that they're programming for their clients, like the short-term games of, hey, I got to get you to lose 6 pounds so that you'll continue to work with me, right?
Yes.
Having a stronger conversation at the front end about what you can truly expect from working with all the way to the short-term gains of sales, right? Like, hey, let's not worry about the actual effect this has emotionally on our client or on our members. Let's instead just really make sure that we're getting these quarterly sales, hit, because otherwise, and I get it. Like, I'm not going to argue that sales
Of
are
course, you got to keep the lights on. You got to keep the lights
facility
on.
needs money. Yeah, money is to a facility as air and food are to a human being. But I just did a post about this the other day on another page I do, Coaching Better, that it says, you don't get into business thinking I want to make money, because that would be the same thing as saying I'm on this earth so that I can breathe air, right? Like there's more to it than that. And so when a coach like this individual here, a trainer, is trying to say like, hey, I don't really think they're going to the gym, they're just looking at that short-term gain of trying to make a little bit of money, which is it's systemic as well as systematic, right? It's part of the system that we've created in this fitness world, along with that being that systematic process that the trainers are using to try to manipulate people in that short-term goal. And partly, we can try to blame the system, but it's a lot of responsibility, right? If not you,
right.
then who?
Well, we are the system. We are part of it. We are the fitness industry. So all I like to say is it might be time to shift the culture of the fitness industry. Maybe an idea.
I love it.
And you were segueing really well into this next point, Lucas, which is talking about how all great ideas start in a garage. And HM of itself actually did start in a garage as well. Can you just briefly talk about what HM is, how you came up with the concept, and then that kind of transition from garage to the beautiful facility that you have now?
Yeah, absolutely. So human movement, like anything else, has been a continuation of trying to improve and be better, right? So I started Human Movement. I like the idea of it being called Human Movement, because a lot of people ask me, how'd you get the name? How'd you get the logo? Which, by the way, is we talked about, right? Like, so one of the things you struggled with early on was like, I got to have the perfect name, I have to have the perfect logo, and you got to put time and energy, effort into it. But like, we're not the Golden Arches of McDonald's, right? Like, nobody's going to know who we are yet. So pick something and grow it behind it. McDonald's, before McDonald's became McDonald's, was not a no name, right? Like, if I just go out and I say the Phillipsons, that doesn't mean anything. But if we start $1 billion corporation behind it, then, or if it builds into it, then everybody knows that name. So don't get caught up in that. But the HM started because I wanted a name in which people could get behind this idea that there's more to it than just exercise or fitness. So it doesn't say fitness, because we help people in more than just their physical world. It doesn't say Woody on it, because God make me vomit, right? Like, I don't need it to be. And you know what? Some people have a personal cultural brand, and that's great. And when they die, it dies, right? And I wanted to make something that carried on as a legacy. So, if you're the rah-rah person that, like, you are your brand, that works. Gary Vaynerchuk, Brendon Burchard, Tony Robbins, David Ramsey, right? Like, those are all working very well. But when they die, it dies, right? Maybe. We'll see. But I wanted something that could last and that could mean a lot more, right? And so Human Movement, Performance, and Prehabilitation, this idea of, we are all on a scale, performance or prehabilitation. The people that are on the end of the scale that are closest to death are people that need prehabilitated. So they need help with getting out of their diabetic situation, or they just tore an ACL and they need to get back to it, right? And we don't deal with, so here's death, right? We don't deal with that, obviously. And then there's like debilitating in a coma injuries, just tore their meniscus, whatever. Like, we can't deal with that either. That's the medical. This is the medical place, right? But I'd argue, just like swimming, right? If you get to this place, you get a lifeguard, but before that, you probably needed a swim coach, right? Yeah. And so that's where we don't deal with, but we deal with all of this stuff, which is, once they're back to being able to function as a human being, then they need a lot of different stuff to get them closer to this, which is that performance base. And this is where you're talking about high-level athletes, Olympic level, college level sports, things that we specifically need for a specific reason in a short period of time. Because ultimately, you're not trying to peak for college football the rest of your life. You're not trying to peak for an Ironman the rest of your life, or military, or whatever it happens to be. So most human beings are in this realm. And we spend a lot of time in this realm, although we can help these people, but these are fringe, right? What we call fringe humans. So these are the people that need something special for a short amount of time. These are the people who need something every day. And so human movement was built around that premise of helping everybody in that capacity to try to get up to the higher level on the scale, but also realizing that everybody's in a different place. And as a coach, and this is really important, anybody listening to write this down, it is not our responsibility to tell people why they exercise. It's our responsibility to help them along the path,
Yes.
right? So if you're a young coach and you're like, I can't wait to tell people why they're doing something wrong, get out. because A, the culture doesn't need you, and B, you're not going to be sustainable in that practice. There's some place for you to use that mentality, but this isn't it, because you will quit. Because Jamie, you and I both know people don't A, appreciate that, and B, it won't last very long. They will leave or you will burn out, because for the 15th time I've told you to push your knees out, right? Like that's the thing that's going to burn you out, and you're just not going to be able to sustain it. So that's kind of where human movement started with. And then this premise of better every day, this idea that, one of my members is coming in to visit right now. Better every day is our class. It's the thing that we focus on. Hey, buddy, how are you? Doing a podcast right now. What are you up to? Oh, absolutely.
I saw your car coming from church.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Make it a great day, buddy. I got to see you. So
he's got guests visit him during the podcast, man. If that isn't a testament, I don't know what is.
Well, he was leaving from church and saw the car over here and just thought he'd pop in and say hey. So he's a wonderful guy. But this idea that we want to try to be better each and every day, and that could be you want to be a better football player. That could be that you just want to be a better mother. That's not our job to tell them that. Our job is to create a space in which they can accomplish that. And so human movement was founded on that idea, but it didn't, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say all of this stuff was just how it was, right? Like we didn't know who we wanted to serve necessarily. We didn't know who was going to show up, but we knew that basic premise, which is that if we start it and we get better each and every day in some capacity, right? And humans have 8 different ways that they can get better. We can get to that if you want to sometime. But if we get better in some capacity as an organization, then we cannot fail, right? And that has to do with consistency. So, we grew into this new space, which is beautiful. If it serves us, we'll grow into a different space, right? So right there's that mock-up of the new facility, right? Should we get there? But we're happy with where we are now. Gratitude, one of our core values. And so we got into this space, and then I started to realize more and more, I want to create something that when I die, it can carry on. Because what's the point if it doesn't carry on, right? And there's a book right now out called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, guy who wrote Start With Why, which we've talked about, that talks about a true business, a business that is truly in it for the right reasons is not playing a finite game. We're not trying to win, because there is no winning. We're playing the infinite game, and the goal is to keep playing, right? To enjoy the process and not the outcome. And so that's definitely a book I'd recommend to people. But that's the idea here, is that we're just trying to get better each and every day. And I want to create a legacy so that people can pick it up where I left off. And if you're going to do that, you have to put it down on paper. And Damien, I was so blessed, because you said everybody needs somebody, to have you come into my life at that moment, because you're the one who helped me sit down and start to put this to paper, right? I had this idea of what do I want that to look like and how does it work? And we talked a lot about Start With Why. And so our culture, we have a culture guide that literally the first thing is those 10 core values that we believe in. 5 of them are core tenets. The other 5 are supported for those core tenets. And that's what you start talking about, right off the bat. And I've used that every single person that comes in who wants to be a coach here, whether it's an intern or beyond, we start with that culture guide. So that's how you're playing your part in human movement. And that's how we've continued to make sure that it's something that can build on, is focusing on those things. So that's kind of how it started. And then again, becoming better each and every day. And that does not mean money. Money is the outcome. It's not it's not the thing. So.
Thank you, sir. Yes, the logo is a big thing. I've talked about this before. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I had issues taking action, which is why I made it one of my core values as well. The SM7, right? Action being one of them. And I remember the conversation. I believe we were going to the name of the place that makes your shirts. What is their name?
Freckles Graphics.
Freckles, yes. And I think we were coming back because you were getting something made, and I was talking about the logo, and I'm like, I want it to be this and that, and you're like something along the lines of, Damien, can you describe this logo to me? You named some company. I was like, no, I don't think I can. And you're like, exactly. Probably don't care. It's a logo. Nike's a swoosh, right? And people wear it. It's just a logo. He's like, pick something and just do the damn thing, right? And lo and behold, I'm pretty sure it was that day. I went into Canva, which is my graphic making software. I made a logo, and I kid you not, it was my favorite logo that I made. And everyone that I showed to get, some advice from, they're like, dude, that's it. That's the one. And I made it immediately. So if you're thinking about doing something, action is going to be a really, really big benefit for you.
It's huge. And what you did was, and this is something that people struggle with so much, especially as we're growing up into this society, I'm a millennial, like one of the first millennials. I think I came out and they're like, here's the first one. And so, and so I was in this transition from blank to blank, right? I did have a time where there was no internet. Oh my God. So, it's silly. I'm not holding that on a pedestal, right? I'm not having this conversation of like, you guys these days, blah, blah, blah. What I am saying is that because of some of the ways that our society has gone in terms of convenience, which is definitely helpful, trust me, like we're doing this right now because of it. We've gotten to a place where it's very hard for us to stay in the moment because everything's about the next thing and about having it right now and immediateness. And so that's a problem that we have a lot, is that we set these expectations of what we think something is going to be, and we're always trying to get there. And so everything that you do is not that thing, because of that thing it doesn't exist. It's in the future, which does not exist, right? And so you're always trying to find that thing. As soon as you stop and you realize whatever I'm doing in this moment right now is the thing. That's the thing that we're doing, and you start to let go of that expectation, then you can start to believe in it, right? And to trust it and to own it and to let it exist. And so that's a conversation I had today with a member. We were doing a workout. It was a conga line workout. It was a lot of fun, actually. And I had the time cap as 25 minutes, right? We time cap our Saturday workouts to make sure we can get through them. And I realized it wasn't going to be enough, but people were so close to finishing that it would benefit us to increase the time cap a little bit. Like nobody finished at the 25 time cap, but everybody finished at the 30. So I announced that we were going to move it to the 30. And one of our members, it does not handle change well because of these expectations. And therefore they got super frustrated. Well, it turns out they ended up finished before the 25-minute time cap anyways, their section of it as a team, and nothing changed except that the expectation changed. And had they not let that get to them, there would not have been any issue, right? And so same with your logo. When you set that expectation, it's just so hard to reach it, right? Or you get so stuck in it that when something changes, you can't handle it, right? You can't shift your mentality. And so that's a huge lesson that I'm really trying to push on a lot of people today, or to pull them with, I should say.
Well, it got through here, so something you're saying is working.
There you go. There you go. I love it. But yeah, absolutely. That's a really cool story. I don't know if I remembered it being that exact day, but I do remember that conversation.
Yes.
So I'm glad it was helpful. Not everybody wants to hear it, but those usually the best.
I like to say that some of the best conversations to have are the difficult ones, because they usually conflict in the short term to some extent, but great benefits in the long term. And
well, if you think you think, and then we can move on, but you think about our world is about challenging ourselves so that we are stressed and we adapt because of it, and we're trying to control that stress. So I would say that the only conversations in which you grow are the challenging ones.
Yes.
Because if you're not challenging your mentality towards something, you are not growing. And betterment is our second purpose, or our second core value, right? And so if you're not challenging yourself, you are not getting better.
Absolutely. You've kind of hit on probably a lot of these points, but maybe just to summarize a couple key things, or maybe something you feel like you didn't get to mention, Lucas. Sure. Let's say you have some people who are aspiring to be gym owners, right? Who better to hear from than someone who's actually gone through the process themselves? What are some things that you would tell them, maybe even some advice that you would have given your younger self starting out to help avoid some of the pitfalls that you might have hit?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different ways this conversation can definitely go. I would say to start having a really important conversation with yourself of why you want to start the gym.
Yes.
Right. And if the answer isn't immediately and irrevocably, I want to do something a certain way because it's not being done elsewhere, and I don't care if I don't make a dime doing it. If that's not the answer, then don't start the business, because that's the only answer that allows you to continuously do it regardless of the circumstances and get through it, right? Just like you. Like, I've had plenty of people come up to me and say, I want to start a business. Plenty of people. How many did you hear when you were here, right?
Oh, and plenty.
Yeah, and that was just a very short period of time for us.
Yeah.
Plenty of people. And I will never, like, how hypocritical would it be for me to say, don't start a business, right? Like, look at, I've started 3 and I'm helping on a 4th, right? But you have to do it for the right reasons. And it has to be that you see it being there being a better way to do it, and you want to do it, and nobody else is doing it, right? Yes. Because if somebody else is doing it, then they've already started to do it. And unless you come in and you do it much better. Like right now, imagine trying to make a platform in which you sold items online. Just any item, right? That people want, like, all right, like, okay, like, how are you going to even come close to beating Amazon, right? It's just not going to happen. So unless you have a very specific niche or very specific things you want to sell, and you have the experience and you can actually share and the how to use it and all that stuff, like, unless you have a very specific thing you want to do and nobody else is doing it, just don't do it. So that would be one of the biggest things. And I think I told you before, because I always tell any member or any person who wants to start their own businesses, if somebody else is doing it out there and you believe in the way that they're doing it and you appreciate that and you can
don't reinvent the wheel. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. Go join them and help them, right? Yeah. Like, I secretly wish you would have stayed in Lafayette, Indiana, because we would have ruled the world. So that's something that I really truly believe in. But I knew you had a very specific thing that you wanted to do. You wanted to create a shift in the culture of fitness, bringing in the educational component in a way that people could get to, right? Like an accessible way that people could digest well.
Yes.
And simplify it, right? And that's huge, because a lot of people get scared. A lot of people in your book, in your space, the younger ones, they want to throw fancy words at people, and they want to prove themselves by standing up on a box and shouting out, the long words so that they can sound more photosynthesis, right? So that's not that isn't going to help them. But you took it and you said, I want to help people digest this stuff so that they can help have a shift in their mentality, and as a result, our entire culture can shift. And I can get behind that as a business. And you can separate yourself as a business. So that would be the first thing, is you got to know, like, nobody else is doing it, and I think it should be done. I have the energy and the will, right? So I don't know if you remember the book Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith. They had that saying in it, which is, am I willing at this time, right? So am I willing at this time to put forth the necessary investment to make a positive difference on this topic? And so you have to have that question answered, yes, every single day for the next 10, 15, 20 years, because that's how long it could take before you start seeing a dime out of this thing, right? Yep. There are, like, these viral videos and these billion-dollar overnight companies are not going to, that's just not going to happen. If it does, it's not sustainable. Like, where's Backpack Boy right now? Like, where's he at? What's he doing, right? Like, Macaulay Culkin, right? I just saw him on a movie the other day. Like, he's still in the acting scene, but, like, those are so fleeting because they're just these quick overnight successes, and then they go back to being
anyone can hop on a fad real quick and have a few seconds of fame, but then what happens when the fad changes?
Exactly. And when the fad changes and you no longer are relevant, you can't keep that up. So you have to adapt too. So that would be a big one. It's just to understand that you got to do it for the right reasons, or find somebody else that's doing it well and just glob onto them and help them, because you're helping yourself too, because it is your mission, right? Like, you got to believe in that. So that would be a big one for me, is to understand that, again, it's so easy to start a business, but keeping it consistent is the hard part. And then recognizing that nobody's ever made it anywhere by themselves. So you have to treat your people as if they are the ones that made you successful. My members, like the one today, like, I could have very easily just been like, right? Like, not now. And then I'll pack but no, because if that guy didn't show up and do the things that he did, I would not be having him talk with you right now because I wouldn't be successful, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So it's realizing that the people that are in you, like I could very easily tell everybody I created the culture guide all by myself and nobody else helped, right? No, like you helped me do that.
I'll see you in court on that one, Lucas.
And so just recognizing, appreciating, showing gratitude. So gratitude is one of our 10 core values. And when you're grateful for those things, you can continue to do them because you're focused on what you do have and not what you don't have. So yeah, gratitude and just making sure you understand you're doing it. You have a purpose. So purpose is our number one core tenet, right? Mm-hmm. That's the number one thing you have to have is purpose. So if you don't have a strong enough why, then you are not going to succeed in that endeavor. And that's true. I don't care if you're starting your own business or you're helping somebody else start their own business or you're trying to be a better father, you're trying to do your own podcast, right? Like the first thing I asked you, I think when you said you wanted to do a podcast is I said, why? Right? Why do you want to do a podcast? Because guess what? Millions of minutes of podcasts are being put on the line right now. Yep. So why do you want to do it? And if it's to be the biggest podcast, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to catch up to Joe Rogan anytime soon.
Yeah, that's true. Well, hey, it's going to take a minute, but I think you got the face and the voice for it.
Hey.
So that's exactly, like you have to have a strong enough why, and if you don't, get out.
No,
right?
You're 100% right, sir. And one other point I'll add to this, which you've already kind of mentioned, but it's a big thing. Another reason why I think we got along really well is part of what I do, if you haven't noticed a lot of similarities in my business structure and the things that I value with what Lucas does, is helping people pursue what they value. It's not me telling them what they value. One thing I differentiate myself with is definitely the getting to know your client and diving into the why. Sometimes you might have to guide them and help them find what they want, but I would never tell someone this is what you want or this is what you have to do, right? It's a conversation of what is valuable to you. Why is it valuable to you? And now let me provide the platform and the space for you to relentlessly pursue that thing in a challenging, fun, and creative environment. That is what I stand for. And Lucas does the same thing, right? You come in, you want to lose weight. Lucas makes sure that, you're healthy, that sounds like it's reasonable for you. And he's going to be your biggest cheerleader and help you get there. He's not there to say, nah, that's a stupid goal. That's not our job. Our job is to help serve our people for what they desire. So I love that. Yeah, we're in the business of helping people.
Yeah, exactly. And purpose is the number one core tenet. So it's figuring out why you want to do it as a client. And I tell all of our coaches that are coming in, it's not our job to tell them what their why is. Our job is help them to clear it up if that's truly what they want to do or not, because sometimes we have these misconceived notions of what it's going to take. That's our job, right? And then to help them, again, relentlessly pursue it if that's what they want to do and help them when they stray, right? Like, so having empathy for those people to make sure that if they go off the beaten path, that they can find that path again. And that is so huge. And as coaches, we miss that a lot. We miss that mark because we think we're the professional, if we build it, they will come and then we're just going to help them change their lives. And that's not the way that we can approach it and I'm reading a really good book right now, Story Brand, Creating Your Story Brand. And it's this idea that you're trying to create a story so that your potential customers can better understand how you can help them. And in every story, there's a hero and there's a guide, right? Like, so Luke Skywalker and Yoda, they talk about. And so what you have to do as a business is recognize that you are not the hero.
No.
You are not the hero.
You're the guide.
You are the guide,
yep.
Right? You're the hero of your own story. So when you go out and you do the things you do, you're the hero of your own story, but you cannot be the hero of their story. And as soon as you start to think that you're the hero that's going to save all these clients, all these people, right, and save them from the turmoil of heart disease and aging quickly, you've lost because it's now about you, and people don't want that. They don't.
And a big thing with me too is part of my tenets is autonomy. I don't want to take away their success or what they've achieved. If I do everything, I mean, you can't make someone squat, like physically making them squat. But if I try and just constantly overbear, if I have like that for lack of a better word, tyrannical mindset where like I'm in control of everything, I take away from my client and their ability to one day no longer need me, hopefully, or at least in a very small capacity. So I talked about that last podcast. You might be doing your client a disservice if you keep doing that for them, everything for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything's temporary, right? Everything in the world is temporary. And so you can't go into it thinking you're going to be with that client forever. One of our core values, responsibility, right? It seems like everything we talk about is about one of these core values, surprisingly enough. But responsibility is our responsibility is help the client take their health into their own hands and to be their responsible. I'm a strength and conditioning coach at a local high school, right? And so it would be very easy for me to say, well, I'm the reason that they won that championship. But no, right? Like I don't get to hoist the trophy. But that's okay, because what that means is that there's so many trainers that lose sleep at night. They get so stressed and so anxious because they're like, well, my clients aren't getting the results. I'm failing as a trainer. No, you're not. Because if you set the expectations up early, that I am only here to help you refine your purpose of why you're here so that I can best serve you in following the path, then that's what I'm here for. But you're not there to carry them along the path.
Nope.
And so they have to take that responsibility into their own hands. And if you do that and they choose not to follow that path, and you've done it in a very empathetic way, showing them gratitude along the way, helping them regain consistency and remembering the context, which is another one of our core values along the way, then you can sleep at night knowing that you did everything you could within your control, because it's not your responsibility to make them squat. It's your responsibility to teach them how to squat. It's your responsibility to show them what they need to do and ultimately to tie it back to the why they had it to begin with. And if you do those things well as a coach, then you can sleep well at night knowing that you did what you could.
Yes, sir. Let your clients be the author of their own life. Okay, everyone? That's the last thing I'll say about that. And the last point I wanted to talk about, sir, in terms of you owning your own facility, is talking about COVID-19. You have a very unique perspective, obviously, as a gym owner, but someone who has gone through, the unexpected of the unexpected, right? And I know you extraordinarily creative, extraordinarily like, hey, something happened, let's figure out how to fix it. And it's no surprise that it seems like you're doing well, sir. So kind of to give some people some context and some understanding, how have you kind of adapted to all the changes with COVID-19?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say first and foremost, starting off this conversation with some empathy in that, nobody can claim that what's currently happening in the world hasn't been atrocious and terrible to several people in the world, right? There are people who've been directly affected by it and indirectly affected by it. And so there is no taking away from that, right? And our success, we are very grateful for it because we have been able to survive because of some of the things that we believe in, right? And I can talk about that here in a second. So, there's nothing to take away from the fact that that has happened. This is not the first time in our society that turbulence and atrocity has occurred. Right? So as a business person, we have to take the responsibility to say bad things happen. And if I truly have responsibility for the people that I serve, and I truly believe that this is something the world needs, I have to find a way to make it successful. And a lot of people make it very, very easy for themselves to say, COVID happened, had nothing I could do about it, and so I'm just going to close up shop. Or I need that money from the government or else I can't keep going, and so it's the government's fault for not taking care of me. If we don't take responsibility for our actions, we become the victim, right? And that's how we keep control of the lives that we live, is by taking responsibility for it. And so some things are just out of our control. Some things, like deaths in the family, the circumstances of people dying from COVID, the indirect circumstances of the relationships lost because of COVID, some things just happen. But with the technology that we have in the world these days, with the capacity for love that we have in the world these days, there are ways to figure out how to make these things work. And so when we went through the COVID situation. For one, we're a small business, right? Like we are not McDonald's, we are not a large corporation. So we're lucky in that we didn't have to make those huge decisions. But when we went through COVID-19, we had 94% of our membership continue to pay full price for our membership.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And that had nothing to do with the contract, because we don't have contracts. That had nothing to do with our hopping online and offering this new online service, right? We did online stuff for our members, but I'll admit it was crap. Like, we're not based for online platforms. There are places that do that very well, and it's not us. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to not go online and try to reach 1,000 people. But it was all because we created expectations of the people that come into this facility. We help them understand what we believe in through our culture. We put community above almost all else. That's our third core value, third core tenet. And because of that, every human being that comes to this facility asks themselves, what can I do to help this thing succeed? Right? And so that's how we were able to survive. And that has happened not because of contracts, not because we have the nicest equipment, but because those people know that we care about them and that we have a responsibility for them. And they reciprocate that. And that's our why. Those people are our why at Human Movement. And so we were able to sustain and survive because of that. You know, and we added, and we made sure we took care of them. We added protocols to clean more. We had the blue X's on the floor for separating for 6 feet. We were very transparent. Somebody got COVID, not in here, but outside, and they came to one class. We shut it down for 3 days. We did some contact tracing. People got tested. All the coaches got tested. Members got tested voluntarily. Everybody was clear, and we went back to business, right? Like, so we were transparent. We showed them that we cared. And so, yeah, that is how we survived COVID. And that has to do with the way that you've created a culture that helps people understand that it's what I can bring and what value I can share instead of what am I getting out of this. And that's what our tagline, move better, be better. Move better so that you can be better, but also it's a call to action. Be better, right? Be the person that you wish other people were. Be responsible for that. Be a better person outside in the real world as well as in here. Be better to each other. Be better to your environment. Be better in your workplace.
Absolutely. And I think that's a real testament, as you mentioned, to how much Lucas has invested into his people and how much of a community he created. I remember sitting at Starbucks and us doing that whole community outline with you and Mason. And I'll never forget how when you interact with people, like it's a family event, man. Every time you have a class, everyone there is so happy to see you. They're happy to see each other. It's as if it's a family reunion every time you guys have a class together. And as beautiful as your gym is and as nice and clean as the equipment is, at the end of the day, it is just walls and paint. It is. And times were tough, and they could have, and you know, small businesses tend to charge a little bit more than your typical commercial fitness place. They could have easily said, it's tough, it's close quarters, I am a little tight on money right now. I could easily just cancel my membership or not pay this month and go to a quick facility or maybe stay at home and do some online free YouTube videos. But 94% of your people said, no, I believe in this. I've built a family here. I trust in Lucas and I trust in myself, and I'm going to do it. So if that isn't a testament to what this man has done, I don't know what is. Lucas, you're blushing. You might want to fix it.
But yeah, again, I didn't do it. I created the space in which it could be done, right?
Yes.
And that's the important part, is that I didn't make these people, I didn't make them want to pay that money.
No.
I created a space in which they can make that of themselves. And that's the same thing you're doing with what you're doing, is you're creating a space in which your environments can become champions.
Yes.
You're not making champions. And so does that mean your ego has to shut up and take a back seat, right? Like, oh no, I'm not making the champions. I'm not making it. yeah, it does. You have to admit that you were just a part to play in all of this. But man, Teddy Roosevelt said, it's amazing what we can accomplish when nobody takes credit, right? When nobody cares where the credit is given.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. That's
awesome, sir. I want to shift gears a little bit now. So we kind of talked about the whole process of the gym and who you are and all that. I want to talk a little bit about developing coaches, because even when I was there, in the short time I was there, you took a lot of time to get to know me and invest in me, even though you knew I wasn't going to stay in Indiana forever. I couldn't stay in that frozen tundra for too much longer. You know
easy. It's like 66 degrees out. It's beautiful.
Oh man, just give it a couple months, Lucas. You know what happens every year. But but you took the time to invest in me. We did disc assessment, and you gave me book recommendations and a lot of awesome stuff, even for someone who wasn't going to be with you long term. And developing coaches is part of my platform, is the educational side of things, right? So we have to talk about that. So when it comes to what you're looking for in general when you're assessing talent, right? What are some of the hallmarks or the markers of a good coach in your opinion?
Oh, buddy. That's awesome.
You know it's going to be a good answer when Lucas takes a second to pause. He usually
I talk a lot about our core values, almost to the point that people are probably going to start to get sick of hearing it. And the reason that is because it's not only helpful to help people understand what we believe in, but it's a filter process, right? It's our way of understanding whether or not somebody is going to fit in well. I talked about using the culture guide the very first day that we sit down with coaches. And what that does is that helps them understand, here's what we believe in. Here's what we're going to ask of you. We have a coach's code of conduct, right? You remember helping put that together. These are the things that we're going to do that you're gonna agree to do if you agree to this, and we're going to hold you to that. We have the accountability system, right? Not the point system or the recommendation
system. Yeah, you told me change that.
Yeah. So that accountability system to say, hey, if you're not following through with this, then we have a problem. Very little of our culture guide is about what you should wear or how many hours should you be, blah, blah, blah. And so to answer your question of like, what are some of the metrics that I use to determine a quality coach is, can you believe and can you act on these 10 core values? And I've told people countless times, I'm sure you remember this, I can make you a great coach because coaching is an action, right? I can't make you a great person. You have to be that. And maybe I could if you were younger and you were malleable and you were willing to listen and we had a lot of time, right? That's one of the reasons I hire such young coaches, right? Is because I can help you if you haven't gotten to a place where the system, unfortunately, hasn't broken you down to where you believe so strongly about things, right? I even see it in seniors in college, right? Like a lot of my coaches are like freshmen in college when I start with them. And I see it by the time you're a senior in college, you already have these preconceived notions of what coaching is. And I'm not saying that my way is right, but you have to follow your heart if you're going to start your own business, and you have to say, I'm doing it differently than other people do. That's what separates us. And so a lot of those things are things that people might not be willing to let go of. And so, so I tell them, I can make you a great coach, but I can't make you a great person. And so you have to come in as a great person. If you have integrity, another one of our core values, responsibility, if you have gratitude, if you can be consistent, if you can be interested in bettering yourself every single day, if you can work to find your purpose, right? I'm still working on my purpose. It's constantly not changing, but getting clearer and more defined, right? If you can do those things, positivity, right? One of ours is positivity. Can you show up looking for the good every day? Those are the things I look for in a great coach. The coaching part I can teach you, right? Because the coaching part is our actions and techniques that you take in order to help another person grow. But if you aren't positive and responsible and consistent and wanting to be better every day and have integrity, how are you going to help somebody else have those things?
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's a really good point, because I wrote this in my first blog post. I mentioned you, of course, because it was about how the shift method was formed. And the reason why Lucas and I get along so well is that personable aspect, right? We believe in a lot of the same values. We have I'd argue we have somewhat different coaching styles, and maybe some things that we believe or we practice or we think like this might be better than that, whatever. At the end of the day, I get along with you and we have such a good relationship because I know that Lucas Woody is genuinely trying to help people better their lives. Just because he does it a different way, that doesn't make him wrong or me right, or that doesn't make it better or whatever. It's clearly working. And he does it from the kindness and from a genuine place within his heart. So that's why we get along so well. And yeah, like you said, you can develop coaches in a bunch of different ways and make them excellent, stellar trainers, but developing them as a person with those values is definitely an important thing.
Yeah.
I kind of talked about this a little bit on my other podcast. Two other things that I really look for in coaches, which Lucas mentioned, one was being open-minded, right? I always try and preach to my people, do not be married to ideas, right? It's good to, read research and stay up to date and be able to take that and apply it to your programming. But things are going to change, man. Especially in the sciences, things are going to change. I always say when I write something or I do a conversation with someone about science or programming, like chances are 90% of it's going to be wrong in the next 10 years. There's a really, really good possibility with that. So be open-minded. Be able to talk to other people who might have different beliefs than you. And you know what? If you listen and you get out of your echo chamber, you might just learn something.
Yeah.
So always keep an open mind. And the last one I'll say, sorry, go ahead, sir.
No, I was just going to add to that a little bit is context is one of our 10 core values. So always keeping in mind the context. And I told you this as part of our culture guide. I truly believe that there is no right or wrong. It's almost all opinions, right? Like, yes, you could argue that gravity exists. It's like it does until you get into space.
Right.
You could argue that murder is wrong until you realize that the person was defending themselves. Right? You could argue that a bicep curl is completely pointless until you recognize that somebody is a teen who has horrible self-image and they want to increase their arm size because it's going to help them confidently. Is that going to make them a better person? We don't know, right? And that's not our job as coaches to help, is to define, but it could help us. We could help them refine whether or not that's going to help them, right? But it's all about the context. And if you can open your mentality to this idea that I'm not right and you're not right and we're not right, but we both have ideas and maybe we can help each other to grow, right? Like you do videos that I watch often on Instagram that I wouldn't have had my clients do that. But as soon as I watch it, I go, hey, that could be a great thing if they were trying to do this or if they were trying to do that. And so many people base their metrics off of what they think is important. So are our people the fittest people on earth in here? No, right? But they don't want to be, right? So if I were to say our gym sucks because we're not the fittest on earth, then I've completely missed the mark on what my members want. So if you ask me, are your members more connected than other communities that you know of? Without a doubt. I've never met a community that's more connected than these human beings. And I don't mean happy, and I don't mean that they give each other money, and I don't mean that, that they're always hanging out, but we are more connected as a group than any other community that I have seen. And so that's where you have to start to understand the context of your metrics and how you are measuring success, and stop thinking that your success measurement is everybody else's success measurement. Just open up. Yeah.
Be open-minded, everyone. And the last kind of value I always tell my trainers is to stay adaptable, right? Gym's packed at 6 p.m. and everything you have planned for your workout is taken and being used, or because of COVID, half the equipment's taken offline and you have to train online, right? Be adaptable all the time. Be able to think light on your feet, be able to change your plan and say, hey, here's everything that I had planned out, but that's out the window and we're doing something different that's going to benefit us today. So be open-minded, be adaptable, and be a good person, as Lucas summarized very nicely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for adaptability, I tell people fear is a construct of a future that may or may not happen. Mm-hmm. Fear exists in the future, and it doesn't exist because the future doesn't exist. We're right here, right now. So fear, anxiety, stress, anger, all of those are from the future. And so I'm not saying you will not be emotional as a human being, but if you can be adaptable, if you can realize yourself in this moment and not set such strong expectations on what should be, then you're going to be much more open. I mean, how many times did you watch me write a workout for a group of high schoolers that had just walked in off the streets, right? Most people, they'd flip out because they're like, oh my God, like, I don't, like, what's the progression? What periodization have they gone through? Like, what is their 3-rep max? I don't know how. And so you remember, why is it that they came in, and how can I help them get there? What are we doing in this moment right now? And when you let go of those expectations of what could be or what is or what should be, and you just say, where am I? Who am I working with? And why do they want to be here? You can start to really hone in on your ability to serve that person as fully as possible and be able to tell them why you're doing what they're doing. Because a lot of times, if you were to ask a coach, so many conversations with high school athletes, hey, what can I do for my biceps? What was my first question? Why do you want to work on your biceps?
Yep.
Well, I want to throw farther. That's not going to help you throw farther. And here's why, right? And so you have to, as a coach, be able to understand that why behind it. So if you're going to be adaptable, you need to think long and hard about why you're doing the thing you're doing. So I know that, Damien,
Absolutely.
that adaptability is
100%. And to kind of go, I mentioned a little bit about what you've done with the short time that we were together, but with your, are they still called, is it still called the Coach Apprenticeship Program? Is that what you're calling it?
Yep, the apprenticeship program. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we got 2 of them right now.
So what do you do to develop your coaches, either apprentices or even maybe full-time coaches that you might have?
Sure, absolutely. One of the first things that I do, and it is super easy in principle, but so not simple, right? Or simple in principle, but so not easy to accomplish in action. And that is to help them understand that I care more about them as a person than I do as a coach. And when they can understand, did you feel that way when you're here, Damien?
Oh, 1,000%.
Okay. So when people understand that, they understand that all of the things that I'm helping you do to become a better coach are all prefaced on whether or not this helps you to be the person that you want to be. Mm-hmm. So you remember Mason, right?
Of course.
I don't know if you know this. Mason actually is no longer with us. And so, so Mason decided, because he was younger, he had just gotten into college, he had decided, he came to me one day, and I'm so proud of him for doing this because he's 19 years old, right? Young coach. And he said, I don't think that I want to be a coach anymore. And we talked about it a little bit, and we started to understand that he had issues with conflict. He did not like conflict. And while I understand not liking conflict, like I hate you, you hate me, let's fight, coaching is conflict, because you have to consistently conflict with this mentality people have that they are comfortable where they're at, because they are not. That's why they're here. But you have to do that in a way that is also empathetic.
Of course.
And so he decided that he just wasn't for that. And he decided to go to be an electrician, actually. So he's in an apprenticeship right now to be an electrician. Wow. So awesome, because he wanted to be more hands-on.
Yeah.
And so I could have very easily threw a fit. I spent a whole year trying to promote you and to grow you and make you a better coach. And we spent time and energy and effort and money, and I bought you lunches and Starbucks and blah, blah, blah. Right? I could have threw a fit. But being a man of integrity, I've constantly told him because I actually coached him in high school too, that I always care more about you as a person than I do as a coach. And so recommendations, Mason, if you need a referral, you let me know. How long do you need before you start your new job? How can we make sure that this transition is smooth and seamless? What can I do to help you? I still talk to Mason on some basis. Being an electrician apparently is very busy time schedule, but that's what matters the most. And when you can do that, the people that you serve, the coaches that you serve, the clients that you serve, your spouses, your loved ones, are going to trust that you have their best interests in mind. And they're going to be a lot more willing to do the things that you suggest that they do. Right?
Yeah.
They're not going to do it because you yelled at them for being 5 minutes late. They're not going to do it because you told them that what they just did was wrong and that they could be better. Right? They're not going to do it because you're the one that owns the facility. Right? I hate the word owner. I don't own this place. I founded it, right? Like I founded it, and that's great. But at some point I'm going to die, and I don't need to own it. The people that come here every day and they bust their asses to be better every day, those people own this place. I just make sure the lights are on.
Yeah.
And so that is how I make sure that the coaches that I ask them to do what they're going to do are able to do that. Now, if you want to be a coach of coaches, that's what you have to do. If you want to be a coach of people, that's what you have to do. But as far as developing the coaches, at that point, once we've understand and established that, and that's a process, that's not a project. There isn't one day that they're just like, they check a box like, yes, I trust you now, right? It's a constant situation. Then we have a lot of conversations of what it means to be a coach and why they want to be a coach. How many times did I challenge you? Why do you want to do this? Why is this a thing that you want to be a part of? Why is it that you're going to start this? Because there are so many other places that are doing the things that you're doing on the surface, right? Because if somebody just comes to your website and they see that you're doing a bunch of squats, hey, guess what? The squat's not new. Been a squat for millions of years, it turns out, right? So your 3-minute post on all the squat fixes, right, on Instagram is not new. Now, granted, it's a bigger scheme. It's part of a bigger scheme, and it's important, but it's not going to separate you. And so asking them constantly, why? And then when they start to have questions for themselves, I try to steer them in the right direction on what I think is right, which again is an opinion. I tell them all the time. I told Mason, if you get to Damien's level and you do an apprenticeship, you're not doing it here, because you're not going to learn more about why you're a coach if you don't go somewhere else and learn maybe either A, that there's other things that you could be doing, or B, that's not the way I want to do it, right?
Right.
And so, all the answers are not in these 4 walls. We have some answers, and hopefully we give you the right questions, but that's what I think it takes to develop other coaches.
And I really like that, because it's exactly what my experience was with you, is that I remember, newsflash, I've been late before, right? I remember showing up late and something along the lines of, first, you weren't mad at me. You made sure I was okay, right? Like context, right? Empathy, right? Trying to make sure that you understand, hey, my employee, my, apprentice, my intern, are you doing okay? And I remember, of course, I was beat up because I hate disappointing people. That's a big thing for me. And I came to you and I gave my example, which is, I have trouble with alarm clock. For those watching, I have old school hammer alarm clock, because waking up early is something that I struggle with. Gotten a lot better, but it's something I struggle with. And Lucas could tell that I was being sincere with my explanation. And he's like, I know you mean it. I know you mean well. You're going to do better. That was our conversation. And from then on, I don't think I was ever late again, because Lucas took the time.
You being late once. I don't even remember you being late, but I remember that conversation now, because I have that conversation with a lot of people and that's just it. If I would have yelled at you and berated you and told you, like, who do you think you are to be 5 minutes late for my time? Because remember, it wasn't my time. It was your time, right? It was your time, and you benefited from being there. Hopefully, like, my goal is to set up a space where you benefit, right? It's your job to show up and get something out of that. And so, and you, because of who you are and how you're responsible for that, you understood that. And so you understood that was your time that ultimately, you were struck, you missed because of it. And so you didn't want to miss that.
Absolutely.
And so that's a huge thing I tell people is, I didn't expect you to be on time all the time, right? I didn't expect that of you. If you were going to be late, you were going to be late, and that's just a part of life. And so, A, if I expect you to be somewhere and you're not there, that's hurting you, because that's your time. And B, I'm responsible for my time. So if I'm sitting there all ticked off because Damien's not here yet, where's Damien? Well, then I'm allowing somebody else to be in control of my time, right? And so not having those expectations and being responsible for your own self, and then being empathetic, right? Like, things happen all the time. Life happens. Yeah.
It's going to keep on happening, whether we want it to or not.
Exactly. Whether you can adapt and be adaptable to it is ultimately up to you.
Yes, sir. The last point I want to quickly touch on before we move on to our final section about meaning and purpose is, so talking to aspiring coaches who are either looking to maybe own their own gym, or maybe just to kind of up their game to differentiate themselves, as you mentioned, as a coach or as a leader. What is some advice you can give to them in terms of how they can stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, absolutely. Broken record. I'm going to take it back to one of our core values, which is that purpose. if you always think about how you're going to separate yourself and what you're going to do, but you don't understand why you're going to do it, it's going to be very easy to jump from one cool thing to the next. What's this fad? What's that fad? If I see a fad happening in the fitness world, the first question I'm going to ask myself is, why is it that I would do something like that? Why would I bring BOSUs into this facility? Does it ultimately serve what we're trying to do here? And so if it can't align with the purpose that I originally intended for this place, then I'm not going to bring it on board. And so you have to understand why it is that you're doing what you're doing. And because of that, you are not going to serve everybody. Some people want to come into this place and they want to get fit in 6 weeks and they want to lose 30 pounds, and we're not the place for that. And so you have to understand you're not going to serve everybody, because those people.
You said you could help everyone, but you're not for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite things to tell people is we could help anyone, but we're not for everyone. And so, if you came to me with a true problem, and it had something to do with the physical aspect of your life, and you did the things that I followed and the things that I said, you are going to get better. Unless you have a genetic disposition for something that I'm not aware of, that you didn't tell me about, you're going to get better. Or I'm going to find you a place where you can go get better. But the mentality of letting go of your ego and understanding it's going to take a while, this idea that you have to be responsible for yourself and that I'm not actually giving you these things, you're earning these things, that mentality is not for everyone, and that's okay. There are other gyms. There's a gym in here, a CrossFit gym in our town specifically, who focuses a lot more on that performance side of things and really pushes the limits of their people and works a lot on like higher level echelon performance characteristics. And that's okay. That's their purpose. That's what they're trying to do. But if I always compared myself to what they were doing, then I would start to do things that don't align with why my members came to begin with. Right? And so you can't disservice your members by constantly changing the way that you're going about things, because A, they stop trusting you. B, you're not serving them the way that you said that you were going to serve them. And so they stop coming to you because you don't have a strong enough purpose for them to follow. And even if you can't articulate that yet, they feel it. Yes. There's a gym that I know of here in town that's changed their programming drastically in terms of their approach, their equipment that they use. They went to doing a lot of odd object stuff all of a sudden, and they lost a lot of membership because of it. And that's because they did not bring on board their people and help them understand the purpose of why they were doing what they're doing. And so the people couldn't see how it aligned, and so they quit because they no longer. And these are all feelings, right? That's the unfortunate circumstance of this conversation, is that people have a hard time articulating their feelings. Go to Simon Sinek's book or TED Talk, The Golden Circle, and he'll explain immediately why it's so hard for you to talk about why do you spend $100 more on Apple products than you do on a regular generic product, right? Like if it does the same thing, all right? And it's a feeling. It's the feeling of you aligning with that purpose that Apple has. And so that's how you differentiate yourself, is you stop worrying about what everybody else is doing. You turn off Instagram. Like I use Instagram as a tool, not as I use it as a creator, not a consumer. That's how I like to explain it, right? And so you have to stop thinking that, every time you see something on Instagram, you all of a sudden have to change. Be aware of it. Understand how it applies in context to your own business, right? Like if all of a sudden people started finding out that barbells contained lead and it was killing people from cancer, I'm probably going to have to
might want to be in the loop.
Yeah, I might want to know about that, right? But, you don't go and get a bunch of TRX straps because that's the new hot thing, because you're going to waste money. You're going to lose people's interest. They're going to stop trusting you. And ultimately, it's not going to help you serve that long-term vision that you have for yourself.
Absolutely. And I think, people have heard us at this point say purpose, why, right? That's probably the most common word you're hearing right now in this podcast. So we're going to close up with this last section talking about purpose in general. And Lucas, I think, segued really well into it. Simon Sinek, he's mentioned quite a bit. I'll be sure to put a link to the books and also to the TED Talk in the description below. But Lucas and I also talk a lot about quotes, and because it's our favorite thing. Lucas got a quote board over there. I would always put some on, and we would talk about things quotes that we really enjoy. And one that is one of my favorite quotes is by Nietzsche. And it's, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." And I typically use why and purpose synonymously. So Lucas, if you were just talking to someone on the street and you were talking about purpose and why, the phrase I always hear you say is start with why, the book by Simon Sinek, if I remember correctly. What does that phrase mean when you say that to someone?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'll start with the book because that's kind of a good ground point for everybody to get behind almost immediately. And it's this idea that when you're communicating to people with what you do or how you do it, you want to start with why you're doing it to begin with, right? So human movement's why, right? When we try to really boil it down to the essence, it's we help people move better so that they hurt less and perform more, right? And that's actually kind of our how leading into our why. And our why is that we believe that everybody has the desire, the ability, and the right to be better, and we want to help them in that pursuit through physical means, right? So that's why we exist. How we do that is through great community connection with humans to keep accountability and consistency up, through programming that allows for functional movements that are focused on moving mechanics so that we move well and so that we don't get hurt, and just having a good general space to be able to do those things. The what we do are the squats and the front racks and the rowing and the circuit training and all those types of things. But if I just told you, hey, come to Human Movement because we have really nice squat racks. We do front squats and back squats. We do all sorts of running mechanic stuff. We love wall balls, right? We have a shower, which is really cool, right? Who gives a crap, right? Like how many places in a 4-block radius have that, let alone
To be fair, Lucas, it is a nice shower.
Hey, I mean, it is a really nice shower. We keep it clean.
But you're right. But you're absolutely right.
But yeah, so if you start with what, everybody has a what. Everybody has a what. And the whats are almost always alike, especially in the fitness world, right? Like when you really boil it down,
a barbell's a barbell. A squat rack's a squat rack.
A barbell, a front squat's a front squat. This idea that like if there's anybody out there right now that thinks that they're going to change the game with their what, get out, because we've been squatting for hundreds of thousands of years. We've been doing push-ups. There is no new movement from a human being. We only bend, we only flex, and we only extend in certain ways. And once you've tapped out those resources, you are no different than anybody else.
Yep.
So how is, and I kind of liken this, we've talked about this before with kind of your education. The how or the what is the information, the barbells, the dumbbells, the rep schemes, the hypertrophy schemes versus the power, the biceps, the rectus femoris, right? Those are all the whats. That's just the base level of knowledge, right? So many people focus on that, right? That's even like the information you get from the book from your certification. That's the what. The how is how do we use that? How do we use these things in the course of a program over the course of a year to help our clients get from A to B? How do we structure a community workout on Saturdays so that the most people can get through it, but also build team camaraderie? How do we make sure that we have processes in place for there to be a cleaning checklist for COVID so that people can feel safe while they come in here? And so the how is the knowledge, right? So the what's the information, the how is the knowledge, and the why is the wisdom, right? So why would I do it to begin with? Why do we exist? Why do people want to show up here each and every day? And so wisdom is a place that most coaches don't get to because they don't even know why they coach to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? And so that is why I speak so strongly about starting with purpose. So flipping the script and telling people, hey, we believe that you want to be better. And so if you move well, you can hurt less and perform more. And we're going to do that through front squats and functional movements and making sure our mechanics are sound.
Absolutely. When I describe purpose, and in a greater context, also talking about goals in general, I like to give the example of an archer, right? Let's say you are, in a field and your goal is to hit a target with a bow and arrow, right? Well, if you don't have a purpose or a why or a goal or an aim, you're an archer without a target. So you pull the arrow back. Maybe you've trained really well. Maybe you got a really stable base. Maybe you got the mechanics down. You got your line of sight. If you could see something, you could hit it, but you're searching and you're searching and you're searching and you don't know where to go. And it's like firing an arrow into the woods and you got one arrow and you got to go retrieve it and keep shooting it, hoping you're going in the right direction if you don't have purpose. But if I put up a target and I put the target in the right space, knowing where I want to hit it, that's the purpose. It's an aim. It's a goal for you to chase. So young coaches, young aspiring facility owners, if you can clearly define your purpose, one, it also just makes things a lot easier in terms of what you want to pursue, right? If you are all over the place and you have 50 million different ideas, like Lucas mentioned, it's going to be very hard for people to buy into it and know like what you even want to do. You're going to constantly change things, which nothing wrong with change, but if you're just changing the change, it's not really going to serve you. So having that purpose, having that direction is really good to ground you and make sure you have that stable base of, okay, I know where to go. And that really leads well into this next talking point, and I hope I get this quote right. I might butcher it, but if I butcher it, whatever. It's okay. Life goes on.
And before you go on, I want to mention one thing.
Yes,
I think this is important for coaches to understand. I love your archery analogy, because the target's the why, the bow and arrow is the how, and the pulling the bow back is the what. This is what I do. This is how I hit the target. The target is the why. I challenge coaches to believe that the goal is the why, and here's why. Because the goal ultimately needs to serve a higher purpose. Ironman is my goal. I want to do an Ironman. Why do you want to do an Ironman? To finish an Ironman? No, the Ironman can't. I want to do an Ironman because I have gotten in a place in my life where I have succeeded in my occupational and my social life. I'm at the top. I'm the 1% best paid doctor in the United States, right? But I constantly want to continue to improve myself. Therefore, I want to do something that is so challenging that I may or may not succeed. That's my why. Okay, you can do an Ironman for that. That's a how. So your goals are actually your hows. And so I challenge coaches to push their clients past the how to better understand the why. Because if their why is not true, if they don't understand it, it's going to be really easy to give up on that how.
Absolutely.
And losing 50 pounds is a how. Being able to live on this earth longer so that you can see your grandson get married, that's a why.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good distinction. And when it comes to what I notice with a lot of young coaches, myself included to some extent, because it is important to have passion. Passion is, I like to say, passion is, the fire, right? It's like if you pour gasoline on a bunch of debris and you light it, man, it's exciting. Man, it's explosive. It's almost like motivation. There's a time and place for it, man. The quote that I hope I'm not going to butcher is, passion or motivation is like the lantern. It's the fire. It illuminates, it guides. But purpose is the path, right? You could have the brightest light in the world, but if you have a million different roads in front of you, the light's useless. You might as well wander in the dark, right?
Yeah.
So, Lucas, can you kind of just describe, maybe from your own experience or just as you think fitness professionals should follow, kind of the relationship between purpose and passion, maybe how it ties into career path?
Yeah. Well, I got a funny story for this. If you see that very thing that's on your shirt, that logo, if everybody can see, is back here on the wall.
Yep.
Right? And if you really look close enough, come visit us, Lafayette, Indiana sometime. If you look close enough, the word purpose, which is our number one core tenet, the most important thing that I believe in, is slightly different in color. The reason it's slightly different in color is because we had to take a sticker that said purpose and cover the word passion. Because originally we had passion as our core value. And I started to recognize, actually listen to a podcast where the aha moment hit by Kenny Kane, who is big into CrossFit. He's also like a professional comedian. He's all sorts of stuff. It's crazy. Kenny Kane. And he talked about this idea that passion fades, but purpose is forever.
Yep.
Right? Because passion, just like you said, I love your analogy, never heard it, gonna use it, sorry, I was gonna steal it from you. That's the lantern. That's the thing that you get super excited about in the morning. That's when you go to a conference and you meet all these people that are in your profession and you see the fitness exposition. You get to try all the new free energy drinks and you get to taste the protein that's made out of crickets, right? And you get to try the new Arc Trainer, this thing that you're never gonna buy because it's $10,000. But you're excited because the vibration plate's the new innovative thing, and that means you don't care about the vibration plates, you care that people are putting energy and time into the things that you believe in. Mm-hmm. And all of these people are coming together to do that. And it's not about the what's, it's not even about the how's, it's about the why.
Yep.
Right? And so the passion is that energy from the vibration plates, right? The passion comes from learning about these new energy drinks. The passion comes from meeting that celebrity fitness professional influencer online that you follow all the time, right? That's the passion. Mm-hmm. The purpose is getting your ass out of bed at 4:00 in the morning to meet that client that you don't even know if they're going to show up, but you believe so strongly in what you believe in that you're not willing to not show up for that person because that is who you are.
Yep.
That is the purpose, right?
Yes.
And the passion can fuel that and keep you going, and you need to continue to relight that passion, but you have to have a purpose.
Yes.
Right?
Purpose will last. Like you said, purpose is forever, right? There's going to be times, even the most motivated, awesome group fitness instructors that you're like, man, you're at a 15 out of 10 all the time. They burn out. Yeah. You may never see it, but burnout happens. You hit, rough patches, and passion fades at times. It might rekindle, but it has highs and lows. Purpose, like discipline, one of our other values. I know it sometimes has a negative context with the word, but when I say discipline, it's consistency as well, yes. Right? It's, hey, I'm having a bad day today. I'm tired. I'm a little sore. I had an argument with my boss today, but guess what? I'm going to take the day as it is. I'm still going to go to the gym. I'm still going to kiss my wife and kid when I go home. I'm still going to be a good dad, right? You take the context or the situation that you're in, and you still make the best out of it with what you have. That's purpose. It'll carry you when passion cannot, because there will come a time where passion fails you. It happens. Don't get rid of passion. Don't get rid of it. But understand that you need to complement it with your purpose as well.
Yeah. And there are days where I'm teaching people how to squat, right? I still teach people I've been doing this for 10 years. I still teach people how to squat. There are days where I get super pumped, and there are days like,
just going through the motions. Here we go.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that passion about teaching people how to squat ebbs and flows, but my purpose never does. And that makes it so much easier to get up the next day and say, all right, let's teach some people how to squat.
Yes, sir. This is a really good thing that I've done with my students and I'm really frustrated because I can't remember where I got it from, so I can't give the gentleman credit, but it was a lot of times students come to me, usually right when they're getting ready to graduate, because exercise science, as amazing as a field as it is, there's a lot of different avenues you can go up until the very end because our field is so dynamic. So they come to me like, Damien, I kind of have an idea what I want to do, but I'm not sure. And what I do is I sit down with them and I say, okay, money's not an issue. What would you want to do? Anything. If you want to be a zookeeper, if you want to be a weatherman or woman, right? What do you want to do? We write it all down, right? This is things that they're passionate about. And then I ask them, okay, what are you good at? So this kind of goes into skill set. And then we have them list out everything they're good at. Are you good at cooking? Are you good at talking to people? Are you good at coaching? And then I try and take those things and see if there's any overlap that matches the profession. And once we get a couple links, I say, could you see yourself doing that? And do you think that would serve a higher purpose and make you feel like you're doing something for the world? And usually, more often than not, I find that I come with an answer and I connect dots for people and they're like, I could do that. I like how those things mingled well together. So know that if you can investigate what gets you excited with what you're capable of and what gets you going, you can find a career path. It may not be fitness, and that's okay, but you can definitely find something that really helps keep you pursuing, the betterment of people, or something that, just like Lucas mentioned, gets you up at 4 a.m. to really just want to start your day.
For the people listening at home, if there's anything that you can take from this, it's this concept right here that I'm going to write down. Have you write down IKIGAI, and I'm going to butcher it because it's a Japanese word, but Ikigai is, I believe, how they pronounce it. And it literally translates to a reason for being. But it's this exactly what you're speaking to, which is this unison of what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and what the world needs, right? And what you can be paid for. right? And so, and the graph that when you Google it, it'll show a graph, and it's an amazing Venn diagram, right? I'm sure you love Venn diagrams,
I love them.
as I know you. But it also shows you when those different things intersect, what comes of it, right? So for instance, and I can't remember all of them, so I am cheating and pulling it up right now. But if you take what you can be paid for and what you're good at, you have a profession. If you have what you paid for and what the world needs, you have a vocation. When you have what the world needs and what you love, that's your mission. When you have what you love and what you're good at, you have passion, right? If you put your passion and your profession together, you have satisfaction, but a feeling of uselessness because the world doesn't need it, and it's kind of hard to get paid for it. When you have your profession and vocation, you're comfortable because you get money, but you feel empty. When you have when you have a vocation and a mission, you have excitement and complacency, but a sense of uncertainty. You don't know if, I don't even know if I'm really good at this, but
right.
I'm paid, so maybe. When you have mission and passion, delight and fulfillment, but you have no wealth, so you're not getting paid, right? And a lot of people have trouble finding that balance, but when you can find all four of those things, what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for, that is your purpose for being. Right? And so many people are talking about, well, that has money in it, and money's not even a big thing. Try getting through your life without money right now, unless you're a farmer or you live off the land. And if you can, then good for you. That's awesome, right? Like you're doing what you love and what you care about. And so that right there is really what this all boils down to, is that purpose, and finding out based off of that purpose, what are the things that I can find that the world needs and what I can get paid for, that I love to do and that I'm good at.
Absolutely.
And that's how you can figure out what you want to do with your life.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to include that in the description, everyone, so you can check that out, because that's Absolutely. The first time I've heard of that, and that sounds amazing for people to explore.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great, it's conceptual, but you can start to put some thought behind it in terms of how do you make it into more of a systematic process of figuring it out. And you can try to work one of two ways. You can start with, like, what is my purpose? What do I want to do? And how do I find those four avenues to figure out how to live that? Or if you have trouble with having those deeper conversations, you can start the other way. What am I good at? What do I love to do? And usually those overlap. People, you got to have a really good introspection to figure out what's the difference, right? Because you may be good at something, but you don't actually love to do it. Like, I'm good at math. That doesn't mean I love to do it.
Right.
And then figuring out what you can get paid for and what the world needs, which again is not always the case, but it usually overlaps. So.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, thank you for sharing that. And
absolutely.
To kind of put a bow on this conversation, sir, because we've finally come to our last point. You mentioned this briefly earlier about purpose in terms of how yours has evolved over time. Not changed, but things slightly adapt. And maybe how that might tie into, if you're willing to share, aspirations or hopes for the future of HM. Can you kind of just share how that's evolved?
Oh, absolutely. So I love the future. Futuristic is my second strength in Clifton Strength Finders, right after Activator, which you've already spoken to, right? Taking action. So, so my purpose in life is to help others find and define their purpose, and then to create processes towards it for a better future, right? So like for you, like I helped you find and define what your purpose is, not how to start a business, because that's not your purpose, right? That's a means to fulfill your purpose, but to help you find and define it, and then create processes towards the better future. I own 3 businesses. One of them I co-own, the 2 others I own completely. One of them is human movement. One of them is momentum event management. So I put on events, meaningful, engaging, memorable experiences. And then one is coaching better. And as I've started to realize, some of those I started just, hey, this is really good and I can get paid for it, right? But as I started those, I started to recognize this theme between all of them, which is this idea of helping people from where they are to where they want to be, but ultimately trying to make sure they understand that there's a reason why they want to be there to begin with. And so that is my purpose in life, which has adapted and changed over the years, right? It's always been around kind of serving people, but sometimes it's like finding a catalyst for change, or it's been to, there's been a lot of different things, but it's always had kind of that same thread, right? And it's all, you're adapting, you're constantly, your purpose exists because of your experiences from the past and then how you react to those experiences. So you have a lot of things from your childhood, which you didn't know how to react to them. So you just kind of took them for what they were, right? So like Your love of sports comes from, like your father or your mother loving sports. Your energy towards math came because you and your father or your mother or a sibling used to sit down at the end of the day and drink chocolate milk and, talk about math problems, right? Like, who knows what they were, but there were things that were just ingrained in you because of experiences. So there's experiences. And then as you got older, you started to have experiences and then start to have reactions towards those experiences. Like Black Lives Matter right now is having a huge impact on the teenagers of this world because they found something that is going against the grain of societal norms, which all teenagers want to do to begin with, but something that people can truly get behind, right? So now, not only are their experiences part of it, but the way that they're reacting to those. And all of those help you formulate your purpose, which is, so to me, so some people are religious, and if you believe you were born for a certain specific purpose, then that's great. To me, it's more of a conglomeration of all these things. That's why somebody who goes through a traumatic, life-changing experience at the age of 24 may have their purpose changed. They found out they have stage 4 cancer, they survived it, and now they want to help cancer survivors. That's changing of your purpose. But ultimately, there's a lot of things that go into this. And so that's one actually the way. So if you read the book, Find Your Why, I think I have it at home. I don't have it with me today. The Find Your Why, which is the practical guide to start with why, you actually use stories from your past and start to create themes through that. And so that's the kind of the process of starting to find your why. So my theme has always been that way. So with human movement, as we continue to grow and adapt, human movement, because I started it, I founded it, and a lot of it is based off the themes I believe in, is very tightly aligned with my why. As the organization gets bigger and goes on, and I pass, and people are taking over the reins for me, the why may change a little bit, but ultimately, if I've done my job, it's continuing on. Like Sam Walton with Walmart, when he died, they lost their why because he was the one who started it, and they did not do a great job of continuing it on. But human movement will continue to grow and adapt. And so I'm leaning a lot into the community aspect of human movement and recognizing that people don't do anything by themselves. But now we have to start to understand, okay, based off of that, how do we help the community start to lean into helping each other and finding a collective why? So I'm actually treating human movement almost as if the members are actually employees, and they are responsible for creating the why behind human movement. And so, or at least living into it, right? Like understanding the why and then living into it. So instead of like, you go to let's just say a 24-hour fitness membership model, and people just come in, how many people actually know each other's names, right? They don't even know each other. And so we want to change. They don't really have a say in the culture of the place. They just kind of are a part of it and usually don't try to attribute to it. Whereas here, we're working on how do we focus more and more on our community, creating and being a part of that culture. So creating systems and processes for that so that they can actually actively be a part of it instead of it just kind of happening. I told you this before. I told all our coaches when they come here, the culture that we create is an active process. It's not just to throw a bunch of good people in the room and hope it works out. Yep. And so that's what we're trying to hopefully do with human movement. And as that goes on and as I grow, or as human movement grows, for me personally, that's going to afford me the opportunity to start to also work in this venture that I'm doing of coaching better, which is helping other coaches find their purpose and then learning how they can start to lean into that with the people that they serve, not only other coaches. Like, so if you ever hire coaches and you want to be able to make them better coaches and serve that, but also how do I serve my clients as a coach? Yes. So.
Yeah, Lucas has, and like he mentioned about talking briefly in the beginning about that little picture he's got on the right-hand side, my perspective of the future of human movement, potentially. I remember when you first introduced that to your members, it was at a house party. Everyone was having a good time, seeing each other. Everyone knew each other's names. You knew everyone's name, of course. And you showed them, like, here is where we might potentially go. Talk to me. Do we like this? We don't have to do this. This is for you. This is for you, my people, right? And like I said, anytime there was a class or a gathering, it was a family event. Everyone knew each other. So Lucas has really taken the time to invest in his people, create a community, And most importantly, in my opinion, he's created a culture. And Lucas, I think that's a wonderful place to end, sir. I just want to say thank you again so much. If you're in the Lafayette or West Lafayette area, or if you're just driving into Indiana for some reason, I don't know why, but if you're in the area, please stop by to see Lucas at Human Movement. He is an amazing man, amazing gym, amazing programming. Please stop by and say hi to him. FAU, wow, slip there. Purdue students, if you are looking for an internship opportunity, right, contact Cassandra Ledman, your professor, right? She'd be more than happy to put you in contact potentially with Lucas to possibly have an internship or an apprenticeship opportunity. Lucas, can you just let the people know where they can find you, anything you want to plug to kind of wrap up this podcast?
Absolutely. So I'll add to that, Damien, what you just mentioned, which is that because of the world that we live in, the technology that it affords us, I am always open to conversation with anybody anytime. So stop by if you're in the area, but don't use that as a reason to not reach out. Make sure that you're reaching out to me. You can get a hold of me, Lucas at humanmovementlafayette.com. If you follow any of our Instagram, Facebook pages, you can message us through that. So at Human Movement Lafayette is our pages. My pages specifically are at Coach Lucas Woody, so you can reach out to me personally as well. I'm always open to conversations about how to help people find their purpose, how to figure out ways that they can start to serve others better. Like I said, Coaching Better, which is the platform that I'm starting to use to teach other coaches, not just the fitness space, but all leadership. Is a great way that I help people as well. So I'm open to all sorts of conversations. But if you look us up at Human Movement Lafayette or reach out to me at Coach Lucas Woody, you can get a hold of me pretty easily.
I'll be sure to put those in the description. Again, everyone, be sure to check Lucas out. As always, you know where to find me. Instagram, that is at _shift_method. Head over to the website if you want to read blog posts or see what services we offer, what the shift method is all about. That is theshiftmethod.org, all one word. Again, at _shift_method for content. We tell you when we release the podcast and other stuff to help keep everyone up to date and educated on what we're doing. Lucas, thank you again so much, sir, for coming on the podcast. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. All right, man?
Hey, thanks for being you, Damien. Make it a good one, bud.
You, sir. Take care.